is going to be a very quick one. I'm just going to do a very quick talk about Vivaldi and its excellent web browser. Vivaldi is really neat in that it has a feature set from old Opera, and the developers seem to support more open standards rather than, let's say, Opera GX, which had a so I'm going to use their social media as an example, where they have their own social media network thing, which is obviously an important part of any web browser. I mean, Firefox still advertises their IRC, which is the most active thing on the planet. But Vivaldi has their own Mastodon instance, and if you know me very well, I use Mastodon. I don't really post a whole lot there that's of any interest to anybody, but I do use it, so you're always welcome to follow me. I'm not going to tell you what my name is, though. Anyways, so it has a nice feature set, though, with its tab stacks and that weird sidebar thing it does. I like it a lot more than Brave, right? Because Brave, despite being, quote, open source, unquote, I'm going to look up, God damn it. Firefox has this awesome new feature where if you open a new tab, it tries to advertise fucking extensions to you. And I don't know how to turn that off yet, but it's really fucking annoying because I try to type in a URL and I end up on the fucking extensions webpage. So that's always cool. Thank you, Firefox, for this amazing feature. I love you, Mozilla. Please fucking pay your CEO another $7 million. Anyways, enough about that. Brave is, quote, open source, unquote, where you aren't you can't really fork Brave. You know, somebody has tried to fork Brave and kinda, but there's a lot of branding, so you have to fucking debrand the browser, and you can't name it fucking Bravier or Mightier or whatever, because they'll make life very hard for you. But open source, right? So Brave gets a lot of issues fixed that Vivaldi is not getting fixed. And this is kind of a consequence of being closed source, is when you're closed source, for the most part, your development team is limited to who works at Vivaldi. And that's a problem, right? Because if you are open source, somebody can read your code and say, hey, this shit is broken, here is the fix for it. And you don't have to make a fucking GPL license. You can just make your source code public and then just not allow redistribution at all. There is no reason why you cannot open source your project. You know what I mean? Like, source availability is an important. I'm figuring out why this is important now, because Chromium has had a bug, and it had this bug about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, really. And it was if you highlight text in a box and you move your cursor to highlight it, but your cursor moves outside of the window, what'll happen is your input will now type in from the previous character. So what'll happen is you type in the word the and it'll come out EHT rather than THE like it's supposed to, because it's inserting a character before the last character. Which is a bug that existed on Chromium for Linux again in 2019 and was patched. But Vivaldi did not get the message. They have actually, there is a thread going on in their forum and it dates back like 4 years, and it's still a bug. And because it's closed source, I'm sure that there's an easy fix for this. And if they were open source, somebody could like push a merge request or something and just say, hey, by the way, this shit's broken, here's the fix for it, and they'd be fine. But when you're working, this is kind of why I don't like Thorium all that much, is because Thorium is one dude working on a massive fucking code base that is Chromium. And when you try to do that, there's only so much you can do, because like you can't really optimize it. It's already been optimized for the most part. There's, of course, because it's a mess, you can do some things, some little things to make it run faster, but for the most part you're going to be stuck with upstream. And being downstream of Chromium means that hopefully their fixes should be in your code. But Vivaldi, again, did not get the message, and they have bugs that are dating back many years now. And because of that, I'm like, man, you gotta at least have source availability, and people need to be able to contribute to your project. There is value in branding, and that's kind of the excuse that they make is that because Vivaldi is just a UI with whatever features they added on top of Chromium, all of that is branded. So they don't want people forking their browser basically and just taking their branding, which isn't it shouldn't be a concern, because like LibreWolf exists for Firefox, but and it makes subjective improvements as well as subjective privacy fixes or like privacy enhancements really, and it is not a serious threat to Firefox's market share. I mean, like Vivaldi being the upstream package means that people are generally going to go upstream if they can help it, unless for some reason they just want the features of a fork. But if your code is open source, and let's say you did have a GPL license, you would be able to take those fixes into your upstream code, and it wouldn't be a fucking problem. So you can do what Firefox does with their branding, and just say, okay, you can redistribute the browser, but you can't redistribute our branding. And that could be the entire UI if you wanted it to. I don't fucking care. What I need is I need people to be pushing fixes into Vivaldi, and that is something that is not happening. And they are. It reminds me of this problem you have in closed source software, where, especially again with working on such a messy code base that is developed by hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, really. Instead, you have a small team of people working on that code and trying to do whatever they can with it. That just causes issues down, in the long run. So while I don't like Brave Browser and its excellent adware, uh, what I do like though is if shit needs to get fixed, somebody will push a fix for it because there's more eyes on the software. You have more developers. You know what I mean? So like, shit. So that's just kind of my case against open source or for open source for Vivaldi is you don't need a permissive license, you don't even need a copyleft license, you don't even need to allow redistribution at all. But what you do need is source availability, and you need a public repository where people can post, bug reports and fixes. Because the forum only does so much. If you have coders on it that can actually view your code and add more code onto it or whatever, like they can push their own fixes, then you have a much better product. And obviously they're gonna make an excuse against that, but I'm not asking for a fork of Vivaldi. I am asking for Vivaldi to have better user engagement, really, and that's just something I don't see in the project. Because the forums are cool, but you're asking end users to file bug reports on software that they can't view. So you are taking a much higher, what would you call it? You are taking on much more responsibility as the developer than you need to, and I don't know. It ends up it ends up costing you fixes in the long run, and that puts users like me off who only really give a shit about the software working. And because as it stands, Vivaldi has serious deal breaking bugs for me, and I can't go in there. I'm not a developer, but if I were a developer, I would be able to look at their code and tell what the problem is and tell them, give them the code snippet that they need to fix the issue. And that would be great. I would actually love using the browser if that were the case, but because it's closed source, because it's so buggy, it's not something I can use personally. So I gotta stick with Firefox for the most part. Uh, but I would love for that, especially because the developers love open standards so much. Just giving me access to the source code. Don't allow me to redistribute it. Don't allow me to fork it. Just allow me to view it. That's really it. And I think that'll make a much better product out of Vivaldi. But again, this is supposed to be really quick. I kind of repeated myself a bit, but that should be it. Thanks for all. Or thanks.